This video is going to be about why people love the redemption-based characters so much and why we resonate so deeply with these characters. And the three examples, as you hopefully can tell in the thumbnail, are Zuko, Arthur Morgan, and Thorfinn Karl Snefny. Which Thorfinn was a real guy, but we're focusing on Vinland Saga Thorfinn. If you can't tell, I love Vinland Saga. Which my profile picture might suggest that. Guys, I need to cut my bangs. They're really bad. I'm sorry you can't see my eyes. If you want to look at them. But the reason we're going to be kind of... there's so many reasons, so we're going to go into one, why we resonate with these characters, and then two, why, even though we haven't done such bad things as them, we still relate to them. The reason that we resonate so heavily with these characters is, there's a lot of reasons, but reason one is because, we see a lot of characters that choose to face away, including some of us in our real life, choose to face away from their problems and what they've done and what they regret. These characters fully greet these problems, and instead of a redemption being handed to them like a flat character, they have to earn these redemptions. And all three of them have a different reason for why they earned it. Thorfinn did not accomplish his goal. He wanted revenge. He lived his life based on hatred and wanting to get revenge on Askeladd, the man who killed his father. And once Askeladd died, not by his hands, he had nothing left to do. He completely had wasted his life away. He could not get back home. He was all on his own, and he ended up becoming a slave. Which, YouTube, this is historical talk, so you can't get mad at me, hopefully. He became a slave and worked on a farm until finally he met somebody named Einar, who was someone who basically was his turning point in a way, because not turning point, the turning point was Askeladd dying, but then he was his bounce back. Einar was Thorfinn's bounce back, because Einar came and he was a young man, same age as Thorfinn, but he hadn't experienced as much as Thorfinn, who watched both his mother and his sister kick the bucket, and who was angry at the world, one, for the world letting him become a slave, and two, the world letting terrible people like Thorfinn run amok and kill his village and his family. And then we see during this little farm arc of sorts, which I should say this at the beginning of the video, there's going to be spoilers for all these characters and a lot of other characters, like one or two characters in their storyline. But we see in this farm arc, season 2, that Thorfinn literally can't even remember all that happened during that time, and the only times he recollects those moments is during his dreams, aka nightmares, because the guilt does haunt him. And Einar helps him get over that hurdle by being someone that's there for him in times of need where he really just needed a friend, and he needed someone that he could call his brother, someone that would actually believe in him and help him through his redemption instead of just seeing him as a monster. Arthur Morgan had his redemption because of his evilness. If you haven't played the game Red Dead Redemption 2, there is a mission early in Chapter 2 where Arthur Morgan goes and collects debts from people that are indebted to the Vanderlyn gang. And he comes to this one farm where a man named Thomas Jones is out working, and he owes a hefty sum. And the reason that he can't pay it back is because he can't work as efficiently as he used to, or work at all, because he has tuberculosis, and he's living mainly off of his wife's income. I don't know if their son did anything, and the little income that he makes doing their gardening at home. And Arthur Morgan breaks into their farm and starts wailing on him, because, that's how things were handled back then. And Thomas Downs coughs all over him, and then we end up finding out in Chapter 4... No, we end up finding in Chapter 6, but there's hinted through Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 that Arthur Morgan caught tuberculosis because of this man. Not because of this man, because of his actions towards this man. And then he ends up... depending on the player, if you're an idiot, he doesn't get his redemption. But if you play the game how it's meant to be intended, he does get his redemption through, in the main quest, he gets it through helping other people in the gang get out of the gang, primarily John Marston, his little brother of a sort, and his family getting away from the gang. But if you do the side quests, he will go and collect more debts, but instead he helps these people out simply by paying their debts and more, because what use does he have his money? He's going to be dead in a week, you know? So he ends up even going back down to the Downs family, who now had to move up north into a mining town so that the son could work in the mines. Well, the mother became... Can I say this on YouTube? An adult worker. A sleeper for hire, that's what we'll call it. So these people are living on their last ends, and Arthur Morgan comes across them once again, and the woman hates him. The wife hates him, because, to be fair, he ruined her life. And she cannot, even really look at him, to be fair. And I wouldn't be either. I wouldn't be able to either, but he does help her son out in the mines with being bullied from the older men and making fun of him for his dad's passing, by beating those men. But they deserved it. They deserved it. He's not quite as pacifist as Thorfinn does, but he does become a good person towards the end of the story because of what he did in the past that he faced and changed about himself. And then Zuko, the third example, is it is mainly brought about by his family. And there are two driving forces in that. One being his father, and one being his uncle. When Zuko was a boy and still part of the Fire Nation's palace, he was a prince, his father, Lord Ozai, was going to send a battalion of men as a distraction, knowing that they would die. And Zuko spoke up against this, and as punishment, his father demanded that they had an Agni Kai, which is sort of a duel in the universe. And Zuko refused. Even during the Agni Kai, he refused to fight him. And as a permanent lesson, his father, Lord Ozai, takes his palm and covers his left eye and completely burns it, leaving a deep, deep scar, and then banishes him and says, once you find the Avatar, then you can return. And the Avatar, if you don't know, is someone that can bend all four of the elements, is connected to all the past Avatar lives, and is kind of like a spiritual leader of sorts in each of their lives. And Zuko goes out thinking that he still wants to come back to this palace, and he still wants his father's love and permission to exist, basically. But someone goes out with him, being his uncle, Uncle Iroh, who, by the way, is just the peak of masculinity. Uncle Iroh is also a redeemed character. I'm not going to talk on him as much as Zuko, because Zuko is the main point here. But basically, Iroh was going to be the lord of the nation, and was a leading general until he had a terrible loss in the Earth Nation while trying to conquer one of their main cities, and his son happened to die during that battle, and it changed him into a hateful leader, into a broken man who eventually became a wise man. And we see that he kind of goes shoot like that. And then once he reaches up to this point, I like to see it as... I'm not the one that made up this metaphor, but I don't know who did, but I've heard it a lot. Fill your cup to the point where it's overflowing, and then let the overflowing pool up into everybody else's cups. Take care of yourself first. And that's exactly what Iroh does. Once Iroh has reached his level of wisdom and his level of peace, he chooses to go out with Zuko into searching for the Avatar to help Zuko find the Avatar, but primarily, he's actually trying to help Zuko have his redemption and lead him in the right direction instead of in the evil direction his father wants him to go by turning into Avatar and getting the Avatar murked. So we see in season 1, Zuko is kind of a flat character, honestly, up until the end where, you get a little bit, and then in season 1 he ends up getting a hold of Aang, the Avatar, and after beating him in a fight, he drags him out through the ice cold of the Northern Water tribe, and he has to be saved by Aang, basically. Aang's friends come to save Aang, and then Aang refuses to leave Zuko there. And I don't even really remember that much what happened after that point. But then we see in season 2, Zuko, he had a really bad haircut. It was just like a ponytail in the back and nowhere else. But he cuts it off, and Iroh also cuts off a part of his beard and his hair, I think. No, he kept his hair, but he cut off a piece of his beard that had the same symbolism as Zuko's hair in the Fire Nation. And you see it wash down a river, getting washed metaphorically by the river. And then there's a lot of examples here and there, but eventually in season 3, Zuko becomes a part of Aang's friend group and helps take down his father and his sister. And now we're going into the why do we still relate to these characters, even though we have not done things half as bad as them. I mean, Thorfinn killed over, let's say, at least a kill count in like the 300s minimum. Arthur Morgan probably, depending on how you play the game, it could be up into the thousands, you know? So, and then Zuko technically had always been good, but he did obviously have to screw over a lot of people and get a lot of people recklessly murked while searching for the Avatar, including harming the Avatar and harming the Avatar's friends, and, you know, just a lot of casualties that weren't even intentional on his part, but he didn't care about. For Zuko, the reason so many people relate to him, and why I relate to him, is that even from the beginning, Zuko lacks a sense of self. When it comes to how he perceives himself, he purely only sees himself as a failure, someone that needs to gain his honor back if he ever had any, and he can only do that by accomplishing a certain goal that he did not choose, but rather was given to him and was asserted upon him. And in season 3, we get a scene where, in early season 3, it is thought that Aang kicked the bucket by the Fire Nation, and Zuko gets praised for it, even though it was his sister that actually did it. But he's on a beach with his sister's friend, and his sister's friend that's also his girlfriend. And they kind of press him about why he's so miserable, even though now he's being worshipped as a hero. And there's a big scene, you know, where, like, they're asking, like, why are you mad, you know, yada yada. And he ends up lashing out and being like, I'm just mad at myself. Like, he thought he would be happy by being a hero, and he's not. He's still miserable, which is what catalyzed him into his joining of the Avatar's group and helping them defeat the Fire Nation, despite the fact that he is the heir. And then, you know, after that, he does become the heir to the Fire Nation and changes it for the better. So he redeems his country as a whole. And people, so many people in modern day have such a strong self-hatred. And I did too for a very long time. Sometimes I still do. Sometimes I think maybe I haven't ever escaped that and I've just been distracting myself with it. And for me, you know, like, a big reason that he hates himself is because of his appearance. He hates the scar on his left side. It's a constant reminder for him of how he always failed. Like, it's just a constant reminder of failure and needing to regain his honor. And a huge part of why he hates himself is because of that. So a lot of people relate to him because of that. For Thorfinn, I think a lot of people, including myself, I'm just going to say I relate to Thorfinn because Thorfinn was so focused on one primary goal that he completely forgot about everybody else and did not care about anybody else. The only people that he did care about was the only person that he was seeking revenge upon and wanted to kill. So, Thorfinn, I relate to Thorfinn because I used to be so heavily focused on all of my goals and what I wanted that I would kind of just sacrifice everybody. Not like, I mean metaphorically, you know? Like, I wasn't taking people to an altar and, like, you know, but, like, Thorfinn was so focused on that goal, and while he killed people, people modern day would hurt a lot of people, including me, when trying to get to their goals. So seeing Thorfinn have a turnaround once he lets go of his hatred and adopting the philosophy of I have no enemies and nobody deserves to get hurt, I want to care for everybody. it's inspirational and relatable for a lot of people because it tells them, hey, you can too make this turnaround because you didn't do what Thorfinn did. You did something hardly even a 5% as bad, you know? And then the reason so many people relate to Arthur Morgan, and Arthur Morgan's story is a little heavier and more complex than these two. Not to say that these two are flat, it's just Arthur Morgan has more time to be kind of fleshed out. So, you play as Arthur Morgan during Red Dead Redemption 2, which is a prequel to Red Dead Redemption 1. And his backstory is that his dad was abusive, mother kicked the bucket, dad ended up kicking the bucket, which is where he gets the hat. It was his father's. And, you know, he's a runaway for a little bit, living on the streets by himself until he gets picked up by the Vanderland gang, which is ran by Dutch Vanderland and Hosea Matthews. And basically they prosper him and yada yada until the game comes up. They raise him into being a part of this gang, which it's shown early on in the game that it's like it's in a positive light, like they took him in, they helped him. But in reality, let's be honest with ourselves, they were grooming a child into a killing machine that would be traumatized for life because of it, for his short life. And we see it starts during chapter 3. Not really. It starts in the beginning of the game. In the beginning of the game, the first cutscene is Dutch sitting in a much better carriage than everybody else at the top of it, wearing the fluffiest, most comfortable clothes you could wear during a snowstorm up on a mountain. And he's not even the one driving the carriage. It's someone else. I don't remember who. But you can see that he sends several people ahead to go and look for places to be safe for the gang, which in reality is for himself. It's not for the gang, it's for himself. He has the gang to stroke his ego and get what he wants, basically. I can't even like say how much I hate this character. So basically what I'm trying to say here is people relate to Arthur Morgan because he trusted somebody that ruined his life. And even in Arthur Morgan's last moments, I can reenact the scene. He's fighting a guy named Micah who was a rat and kind of destroyed the gang, even though it was heading in direction anyways without him. And it's him slugging it out with Micah until, you know, they both end up falling over. And Arthur Morgan is closer to Micah's revolver that had fallen out of Micah's holster. So he starts crawling towards it, and he's just about to grab it, and Dutch steps on his foot. And Arthur Morgan looks up at him, and he's just like, Dutch, like, I gave you everything. I gave you everything I had, you know? And it's a very emotional moment where he's like, Micah's a rat, and, you know, a member of the local police force he told me, like, Micah told him everything. Micah was the one ruining all of our plans and planting all these terrible moments to ruin our gang. And Dutch still ends up choosing Micah over Arthur because of his pride. A matter of fact, Dutch has a lot of times to be... He could have been redemption. He could have had a redemption, but he didn't. Because he wasn't as good as mad as Arthur Morgan was. But maybe that's a topic for a different video. I was planning on going up against, like, the opposite characters from each piece of media, but the video is 18 minutes long. So Arthur ends up dying. Dutch just leaves him there. Dutch and Micah leave, and because of all the physical activity and being around, like, fire and grenades, not grenades, but, like, dynamite, Arthur cannot keep it up anymore with his tuberculosis, and he dies staring at the sun, which was something that was foreshadowed. So, at the very end of Arthur Morgan's story, we don't get an uplifting moment. We don't get to see him being rewarded fully for his redemption, other than how he impacted other people's lives. And that's why so many people relate to Arthur Morgan, because one, obviously familial troubles, but two, Arthur Morgan, well, he did not get a traditional reward for his redemption and being a better man. You get to see people around him prosper because of that. And it's a part of kind of, I think, everyone's psychological psyche to want to be a hero of sorts, to want to be a good person, to want to help the people around you and inspire the people around you. So I'll give two examples of what happened after Arthur Morgan's sacrifice, and I'm going to make it as quick as possible. John Marston, his like kind of brother figure, gets to escape with his family. He's also carrying Arthur's most prized possessions. He gets to escape with his family, and in the prologue of the game, you do get to see that happening, and you also see John go and get his redemption for Arthur by killing Micah. And then in Red Dead Redemption 1, which is it takes place after Red Dead 2. He gets his further redemption by also killing Dutch and then setting his life down for his family as well. So they kind of have the same ending of sorts. But he gets to live a much longer, much more fulfilled life, and so does his family. If Arthur Morgan had not said that, Micah told Arthur that he was going to kill John and his family, including like I think he was like a 6-year-old kid. He was going to go out of his way to make sure that the Marston bloodline died, simply to spite Arthur. So that's the example one of how Arthur made someone's life better. And the second is a girl named Tilly Jackson, who is a member of the gang, but is not very important. She's one of the girls around the gang, and she kind of just does like laundry and takes care of tents and all that. So she's not very important to the gang, but she's someone that they all have around. And the Vanderlyn gang is very morally gray, as, you know, they were kind of woke for the 1800s, except for Micah, who's just overall piece of crap. But Arthur sends Jack, John's son, and John's wife, Abigail, off with Tilly, and literally hands her, like, at least, like, $500, which, you know, is an insane amount of money in the 1800s. I don't know exactly, like, how much. You can search it up if you're curious. But insane amount of money. And then Tilly gets to... we get to see in the prologue that Tilly accomplishes her dream. She marries a wealthy man who treats her very well. She has a child, I think. And she... I forgot what she did for work. I wanted to say she became a writer, but that was another one of the girls from the gang. It was not her that became a writer. Maybe she didn't have a kid. Maybe she was like a nurse, or I don't know. But she got to live in Saint Denis, which is a very fancy town in the Red Dead universe. So that's why people relate to Arthur Morgan, is that he made the lives of people around him far better simply because he changed. And people resonate and relate with that because we all want to make our loved ones' lives better. It's just natural for us. So seeing him accomplish it after he also managed to accomplish a lot of terrible, terrible things under the advice of Dutch, and not so much Hosea. Hosea is a really hard topic for me, so I'm not going to talk about Hosea. Poor Hosea. But if you haven't played Red Dead Redemption 2, I don't care if you're a 60-year-old woman, play that game. It's not a hard game. The combat in it is really not hard at all. I think it could generally be someone's first video game and they'll get it. There is just a lot of controls to like memorize if you care. But then you basically only need to know triangle, X, square, O, R2, L2. You know, like you don't really need to know a lot for the game. So even if you've never played a video game, play Red Dead Redemption 2. It's generally life-changing. Obviously, I love it because it's the one that I talked about the most. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please do like and subscribe if you can. Once I reach 100 subs, we will be doing another Q&A. Hopefully by then, I won't have to have like 5 people asking like 3 questions each, and it can be about like 15 people asking 1 question each. I would love that. We got a lot of good feedback last video, so I tried stylizing this video kind of similar to it. I hope that it goes well through. I hope that goes through well, is what I meant to say. But yeah, in case I don't see you next video, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.